Hebert. Ruth Smay. Jay Walk. Matt Ambrose. Steve Barretts. Hannah Gale. Here. Lisa Heady. Present. Lauren Bode. Mark McDermott.
Here.
Jill Vergara. Here. Karen Wackerman. Here. Carrie Burcham. Here. Pamela Iacono. Here. Christine Messina. Here. Pete Talman. Here. Brian Farnan. Here. Drew Georgiadis. Here. Doreen Herron. Margaret Horton. Here. Sam Cargill. Michael Hurley. Here. Frank Patisse. Here. Eric Sunman. Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then please remain standing afterwards. Sam Cargill lost his wife, and I know that their family is all in our thoughts and prayers. So please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Item 2 is to consider and act upon the minutes of the annual budget meeting held on May 6, 2019, and the regular meeting held on May 20th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Wackerman. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 3, to consider and act upon the following reappointment to the Fair TV Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Catherine Braun, 245 Sunny Ridge Avenue, term July 2019 through 2022. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Georgiadis. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 4, to consider and act upon the following appointment to the Ethics Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Robert Bolito, Jr., Democrat, 83 Wheeler Park Avenue, term July 2019 through 2021. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Lefkowitz, seconded by Representative Dean. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 5, to consider and act upon the following appointment to the Solid Waste and Recycling Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Dabney H. Bowen, 317 Verna Hill Road, term November 2018 through 2022. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Iacono, seconded by Representative Vergara. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. We're going to take 2 items out of order. We're going to take the assessor's report, and then we're going to take Mill Hill School to get those items out of the way earlier in the evening. So we'll move first to the supplemental agenda. Item 1, to receive the assessor's report on the tax relief for the elderly and disabled homeowners program as required under Chapter 95, Article 3, Section 15.1 of the Code of the Town of Fairfield. We did receive this report via email. Is there any discussion or comment on the report? Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. I mostly have questions. I wanted to commend Ross for the way that he compiled the chart and added a lot of different categories that we had asked for in the past. And I still think that there are some ways that we can refine it. I do think that it would be helpful to parse out more assessment ranges. It is interesting to see that many of these 4 assessment groups listed are each basically a quarter of the participants, but in that last assessment category, it's a very large range, and it would be really great to see how many participants can be broken down into those assessments, since we are considering changing this to an assessment limit. rather than having a QTAV. I also wanted to note that it is another decline in our participation, which is concerning to me. I think that we noticed last year that it was a significant decline. It's another decline. Now we have less participants in our program than we did in 1982 when the program was initiated. So that's deeply concerning to me. And I'm hoping that we can change this and try to institute some of the changes that we came together as a committee to put forward, most specifically the income and increasing benefits, because that's another one of my issues, is that I didn't see any information about average benefits for participants, and I do think that that would be helpful to list each year what the average participant is receiving in benefits. One of the issues for us is that while our income limits go up with the annual, the Social Security inflation, so that it started at 70,000, I think, when the program was first instituted, well, when the revisions were made. Now, 7-8 years later, it's now $75,000. So there's been a slow increase to the income limit, whereas with benefits, it's been completely stagnant. And I think that that's definitely problematic for our residents, where they're experiencing more and more higher taxes, a higher tax burden, both at the town level and at the state level, and they're not getting increased benefits. So I just wanted to see if you could address some of those issues, and after you do your report, I'm sure I'll have some more questions.
Representative Vergara, are you hoping that he addresses them now or that he gets back to the body with that information? Okay. Can we give the assessor maybe some, I don't know if we have responses now, but we can certainly send you via email those requests, and then maybe you can provide us with additional information.
You have my email, so send me what you're looking for, and I'll revise the report as best I can.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the body on the assessor's report? Okay, seeing none, so we'll move to Mill Hill, item 16, to hear and consider upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled a resolution appropriating $22,600,000 for the costs associated with the renovation and expansion of Mill Hill Elementary School, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved, and further resolved that the first selectman be and hereby is authorized to execute on behalf of the town such documents as may be necessary to effectuate this resolution. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Hurley, seconded by Representative Lopez. Is there discussion on this item? Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. I had a lot of questions. I sent out a pretty extensive information request on this item to Tom Flynn and Jim Walsh, Jim Brown, Chris DeWitt, Mary Leclerc, Ed Bateson, and Chris Timniak about their views on why they voted against a 504 school. I was concerned voting for a 441 school that there might be ramifications for the town, but in the Board of Finance meeting, they raised several potential items that might offset my concerns, although I didn't receive any responses and they're not here to answer them, so I'm not quite sure how to proceed with this. My concerns dated back to the capital planning meeting that I attended in 2015, where several Board of Finance members basically told the Board of Ed to go and go back to the drawing board and increase the capacities that they had for Holland Hill, Mill Hill from 462 and 441 to 504. Subsequently, the Board of Ed wrote ed specs for both schools for 504, then hired a consultant, Malone and McBroom, to come and look at different scenarios that might address racial imbalance at McKinley, which is significantly over the 25% mandated maximum allowed by the state, and we've been out of compliance for 7 out of the past 8 years. Malone and McBroom came back and said there was only one way to get around that racial imbalance and maintain our neighborhood schools to the extent possible and walkers to the extent possible and a few other items. And that was to build Mill Hill and Holland Hill to a 504 school. So given that the Board of Ed had gotten that go-ahead from the Board of Finance and Malone and McBroom's results from their study, the Board of Ed then submitted a racial imbalance plan to the state saying that Mill Hill would be a 504 school and Holland Hill would be a 504 school, and that way we could minimize the disruption if we do a redistricting that would bring McKinley back into balance over a long term. So we are now unable to achieve a 504 school because that was voted down by the Board of Selectmen, and an amendment to increase it to 504 was voted down by the Board of Finance. The same people that asked for it to be a 504 school turned around and they sort of flip-flopped on that and then said, we don't want a 504 school. Why did you make it a 504 school? So I'm really wondering, first of all, why they're not here to sort of discuss why they made that change. But also, I just want to say we can't afford, in my opinion, and I think most of our caucus believes that we can't really afford to wait for Mill Hill. Mill Hill, the people of Mill Hill deserve a renovated school, and the ramifications of not doing the 504 could be pretty dramatic in the future, and it's really a shame if it turns out to be worse for the district than it could have been had we just spent the $1 million to do the 3 extra classrooms. And that's really all I have to say. Thanks.
Further discussion from the RTM? Representative Pistilli?
Sharon Pistilli, District 3. I am reluctantly supporting this because the people of the students of Mill Hill deserve a facility that doesn't involve portable classrooms. You know, I have a friend who attended as a 5th grader in a portable who's now a junior in college, and there's still portables on the property. But I do think that it's short-sighted to not support the 504 plan, and I think that down the road we're going to see that once again we're being penny-wise and pound-foolish with our investments in the town facilities.
Further discussion from the RTM? Representative Wackerman.
I wanted to second what Representative Gerber said. I attended both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance meetings on this, and I came away from both not understanding why the people who voted for the 441 did that. It was just not clear or logical. But I would like to do what those people did not do, which is listen to the Board of Education. And I know they're asking that we approve this 441 because they want to get going on the school. So I will be supporting it, but I'm very disappointed that we are voting on a 441 and not a 504.
Further discussion? Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. Yes, I agree with Representatives Gerber, Pistilli, and Wackerman. It was a really hard decision for me. I've attended all of these meetings. I've really been trying to think through these issues. I've been going to the Board of Education meetings, and several of my constituents have asked me to vote for a 504 as well. So it's a really, I understand why people are pushing for a 504. There's so many different reasons why we need this flexibility in our school space, and also why we should be replacing those 5 portables with brick and mortar, and we shouldn't be taking 5 portables and only replacing 2 of them. So, but because of what Representative Wackerman said, I do also agree with her that it's important to follow the lead of the Board of Education. They amended their ed specs, and I think that they're the policy leaders with educational issues, and I understand why they made that decision. Students shouldn't be in these conditions any longer than they need to, and I understand why Mill Hill needs these classrooms renovated as soon as they possibly can. So I'm supporting it also for economic reasons. Unfortunately, the Board of Finance didn't consider the long-term economic impact for our town, but now we're in the position of having to figure out whether we can juggle the reimbursement and whether we can balance that against the needs of our long-term needs. And I'm too nervous to take that risk and jeopardize our reimbursement. So I'm going to support the 441.
Further discussion, Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I just want to say that Mill Hill is an asset to this town, and during the budget season, there was bipartisan discussion and support that we need to support the assets in the town of Fairfield. I believe that at $1 million extra, 3 additional classrooms, a 504 at support the assets of this town, which drive our tax base and our grand list. So I am reluctantly supporting 441. I think 504 is the best fiscally responsible decision to make. Unfortunately, that decision has not been given to us tonight, so I'm going to support the 441. Thank you.
Further discussion, Representative Hurley.
Is that okay?
As long as you promise to not abuse the time limit.
No.
Please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. We'll move to item 6. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the town of Fairfield, by its first selectman, is authorized to enter into a 10-year lease agreement to rent premises located at 418 Meadow Street, Fairfield, for the Board of Education's maintenance facility and operations to be paid from the Board of Education budget. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Burcham. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. I'd like to amend the resolution to read subject to the Board of Selectmen approval.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the resolution so that it is subject to Board of Selectmen approval. Is there a second? Second, Representative Dean. Is there any discussion on the proposed amendment to the resolution? Representative? No. Any discussion on just the proposed amendment to the resolution? Second to Representative Dean. Seeing none, is there any comment on the proposed amendment to amend the resolution to make it subject to Board of Selectmen approval? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Representative O'Shea, any abstentions? Okay, the item carries. So the item is back before the body as amended. Is there any discussion on the item as amended? Representative Iacono.
Pamela Iacono, District 8. Mr. Moderator, through you to the first selectman, can you please give us a synopsis of what happened at the Board of Selectmen meeting on this item?
Mr. Tetreault?
as best I can, and with a disclosure that, well, let's take it from the top. The town has rented this facility for the Board of Ed, I want to say for about 15 or 20 years. I don't have the exact name, but for quite a while. The last time this lease came up, it was owned by somebody else, or the prior landlord. In the last few years, Julian Enterprises, or one of the Julian operations, has bought it. So our landlord is currently Julian. There was some discussion at the time, at the Board of Selectmen meeting, as to whether we should enter into this lease with Julian, given we currently have a legal action against them and they have some against us. You can look at that either way. Certainly, if we can not do business with Julian, that's not a bad thing. In this case, as a landlord, they've actually been a good landlord. My concern for the last 24 months is they wouldn't lease it to us. All right. And that's because the Board of Ed has used this space for 20 years. They've done a certain amount of tenant improvement work there and spent dollars to modify the space. It's worked very well. And it was the Board of Ed that asked us to negotiate a longer-term lease so they'd have some stability with that. Because that wasn't passed by the Board of Selectmen, the lease, the rental rate starting July 1st, first of all, we'd be month to month, which means they can kick us out any time. Second, I believe the penalty rate, if you will, doubles the current lease. And I'm going to ask the town attorney, am I correctly stating that? So we're going to pay twice as much starting July 1st as we have been. The lease that was negotiated, the 10-year rate, had only a 2% cost increase per year, which is one of the best market deals out there. We've checked with commercial brokers. They said this was a great rate and an excellent negotiation in terms of what the lease was. So on one hand, my concern is that we're cutting off our nose to spite our face. I'm in favor of not doing business with Julian unless it's in the best interest of the town. In this case, they're a landlord. They're not actively doing something. They bought a property we've been leasing for close to 20 years, I'm going to say, and looking for another site, finding another site, moving to another site. If we do it on our terms, is very expensive. If we do it on their terms because they kick us out, it will be extremely expensive. And if we stay there, it's going to cost us twice as much per month as it had been.
Did you feel that way when you entered into the agreement with Julian on the fill pile? Did you think that they were a good person to do business with then?
I'm sorry, is this about the pile or is this about the...
It's about doing business with Julian. And if you felt that way when you went into the fill pile, and now you feel that way going into the lease pile, I'm extremely uncomfortable maintaining a business relationship with somebody that we're now in the midst of suing and countersuing.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer the question if you don't want
Well,
to.
I'd be happy to. The agreement with the pile was an answer to a purchase order done in, I think, 2013. If Julian had completed that purchase order properly, and as we wouldn't have a problem with him. All right. As of December 14th of, I think, 2016, we definitely had a problem with them in terms of how they did not execute on that contract. So as an operator, we're not happy with them, but it wasn't until that point in time.
Well, I think my point is that there could be at any point in time where this lease and this building doesn't work out with Julian. So I think that the Board of Selectmen asking all of you to postpone and to continue to work on this with another landlord was a way to go. I personally will be abstaining on this item. You've had plenty of time knowing what was coming down the pike to go out and look for other things. And I know they said they went out and did it, but you know, we need to do more. And I will not be supporting this prematurely before the Board of Selectmen takes action on it.
Okay. And we will continue to look. It's just going to cost us a whole lot of money if we have to move out of here. It's going to cost us twice as much to stay.
A lot more if we end up in litigation with them in a countersuit as well.
They're a landlord. They just kick us out. There's no suit.
Further discussion on the item? Representative Pistilli.
Sharon Pastilli, District 3. Mr. Moderator, through you, I would like to ask for Selectman Tetro, in more concrete terms, starting July 1, month to month specifically, how much money we'll be paying, and you know, and have we had any problems at this particular site over the last 20 years?
Yeah.
The rent that's currently in effect till the end of the month has a holdover provision, which basically says that if we hold over after the end of the lease, we hold over on the same terms and conditions, except the rent is double what we are currently paying. So it'll be the same terms and conditions. We're month to month, and they could come and ask us for double the rent until we sign a new lease. And
just to answer the second part of your question, we negotiated this lease at the direction of the Board of Ed. They were very interested in staying in this site. It's worked out well for them, and they haven't had any significant issues over that time period.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak to the item? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? We've got Tallman, Hurley, Iacono, Farnan, Messina, Batiste, O'Shea, Lefkowitz. I get everybody? And Rotelli. So the item carries. Item 7, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that in accordance with the recommendation from the Director of Public Works, in consideration of $6,625, the town grant to the state of Connecticut a perpetual easement over property owned by the town at the corner of Post Road at North Benson Road, said easement being shown and designated on map entitled Compilation Plan of the Town of Fairfield, map showing easement acquired from Town of Fairfield by State of Connecticut Department of Transportation, U.S. Route 1, Boston Post Road at Route 135, North Benson Road and South Benson Road, dated November 2018, made by Mark D. Rolfe, P.E., and further resolved that the Town of Fairfield be and hereby is authorized to execute on behalf of the town such documents as may be necessary to effectuate this resolution. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Garskoff, seconded by Representative Vergara. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 8, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that in accordance with a recommendation from the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, the town accept from 1100 Harbor Road, LLC, the donation of a portion of real property known as 1101 Harbor Road, Southport, Connecticut, owned by the said 1100 Harbor Road, LLC, shown as parcel to be deeded to the Town of Fairfield on that certain map entitled Data Accumulation Plan showing parcel to be deeded to the Town of Fairfield, prepared for 1100 Harbor Road, LLC, number 1101 Harbor Road, Southport, Connecticut, prepared by the Huntington Company, LLC, and further resolved that the town relinquish an easement granted to the town by Robert G. Lee and Jean D. Lee as more particularly described in a certain agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Robert G. Lee and Jean D. Lee dated January 6, 1995, and recorded in volume 1452 at page 221 of the land records of the Town of Fairfield. However, said relinquishment shall not relieve the grantors of said easement of any other obligation or restrictions set forth in said agreement, and further resolved that the First Selectman be and hereby is authorized to execute on behalf of the town such documents as may be necessary to effectuate this resolution. Said acceptance is subject to the conditions stated in items 1A to D, item 3, and item 4 of the May 21, 2019 Sasquatchog Association letter to the Board of Selectmen and agreed to by the applicant. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Walk. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Wackerman.
Karen Wackerman, District 7. I'd like to make a motion to add the following. Further resolved that the Harbor Management Commission shall have jurisdiction over this property.
Okay, is there a second for the motion? Seconded by Representative Hurley. Is there any discussion on the proposed amendment? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public on the proposed amendment to make the property subject to the jurisdiction of the Harbor Management Commission? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. So the item is now before us as amended to make the property subject to the jurisdiction of the Harbor Management Commission. Is there any discussion on the item as amended? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 9, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the lease between the Town of Fairfield and Fairfield Community Theater LLC for approximately 560 square feet of town-owned property abutting 1418 Post Road be and hereby is approved. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Vergara, seconded by Representative Dean. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Bertram, are you going to recuse yourself? I'll just, for the record, we'll note that Representative Bertram is recusing herself and leaving the room. Okay, now, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from, Representative Gale? And the item before the body is a lease of 560 square feet of town property. This is not the tax abatement.
I understand that. Representative Gale from District 6, I just wanted to say in general, in regard to the next three amendments, that when I originally moved to Fairfield from Chicago, away from my very well-funded urban arts community, I got here and noted that on the corner of Fairfield Avenue and Black Rock in Bridgeport, there was this awesome structure that was titled the Bridgeport Arts Center, and I was so excited. There was a local arts center where I was looking forward to the possibility of taking my child to classes and maybe attending them myself. And of course, it never materialized. And then over the years, I heard that the reason it never materialized was because the town of Bridgeport refused to partner with the not-for-profit that was, in all good faith, going to create this center for art in the Black Rock community. And of course, that didn't happen. That building sat there empty. All of those children that could have taken classes there, all the people that could have had their lives enriched, lost out. And then eventually, it got turned into a purely commercial enterprise that didn't benefit anyone except the few people who maybe it put money in their pockets, maybe it didn't. So I am just really proud to be able to support this, the enterprise that the next three items address. Thank you very much.
Further discussion on item 9? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 10, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the license and access agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Fairfield Theater Company LLC for town-owned property adjacent to 1410 Post Road be and hereby is approved. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Walk, seconded by Representative Lefkowitz. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 11, to hear and consider and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that in accordance with a request from the Fairfield Theater Company, LLC, the Town of Fairfield enter into an agreement pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 12-65B to fix the assessment of the property as at 1410 Post Road for a period of 10 years, and further resolved that the 7-page tax abatement agreement between the Fairfield Theater Company LLC and the Town of Fairfield be included in this resolution. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Georgiadis. I read it wrong? Okay, Fairfield Community Theater. Is there any discussion on this item other than the fact that I read it wrong? Representative Farnan, you're going to...
I'm going to abstain and recuse myself and leave the room too.
So you're going to recuse yourself and also leave the room, so we'll note that for the record.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any... We'll wait for you to leave. Take your time. Is there any other recusals? Any other discussion on this item? We got Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, RTM District 10. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to either the town attorney or the first selectman. Is there any approval required for this project by TPZ, or have they opined on it, or might there be some special? Because there's a lot of, from what I understand, changes potentially taking place, and I'm not an expert on TPZ, but I think it is something that we should know about.
Maybe the town attorney.
When you say the project, you mean the whole theater project?
Yes.
I would assume that they need to get, when they go to get their building permits and such, they will need sign-offs from zoning. I don't know whether they need to go back to TPZ. It's not a change of use. Mr. Kleban is here, and I know Mark Barnhart is here. I don't know if they could comment further, but since they're keeping it a theater, I'm not sure that they need any other kind of zoning approval. But they certainly would need a sign-off from zoning.
Okay. I guess would be the first selectman and Mr. Barnhart spoken with representatives of TP&Z to see if there are any concerns? I mean, I support the project. I just want to make sure that, TP&Z, which is in many ways sort of a quasi-state commission, isn't going to essentially hold this up, and we're not putting the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah, whatever we're approving here tonight, they're going to have to go and do whatever they need to do with zoning, so, and all the other departments in town, quite frankly. So I don't know if Mr. Barnhart could speak to that, but.
Mark Barnhart, Director of Economic Development. Yes, this would be subject to any approvals from planning and zoning. None are anticipated in terms of the interior renovations that will require a building permit, which of course requires planning and zoning to sign off on it. But in terms of any subsequent improvements to the space, for example, the leased improvements, there was some discussion about some additional signage or perhaps some other amenities to the exterior that would require a permit application to planning and zoning. So yes, I've had conversation with planning and zoning staff. They're fully aware of the project, and I've certainly discussed that with Mr. Kleban, his representatives as well, and they'll make whatever applications are necessary to secure the necessary permits to move forward with the project.
Thank you.
So just to follow up, I don't think my question was asked. My question was, has anyone in the administration who's been involved in this project actually, I mean, I understand that there's town planning and zoning staff who are paid employees, but it's ultimately the commission that would approve any amendments. So if the first selectman could speak to that, I would appreciate. Stanton, could it be the first selectman, please? Could it be the first selectman?
Yeah, if you want to answer.
I think that the reason for asking the town attorney is because based on the restrictions and rules surrounding the Planning and Zoning Commission, if this is something that's going to come before them, the commissioners are not going to talk about it with anybody prior to that. So talking with staff in the department is one of the ways you get
No,
an indication.
I understand that, but I thought what was said before, you weren't sure if anything was going to ultimately have to go in front of them.
Oh, a number of the modifications they're talking about, and I think that Mr. Kleban laid it out, at least in his presentation before the Board of Selectmen, they will definitely have to go to Town Planning and Zoning to make some of the changes they're talking about to the building. However, in terms of the abatement, nothing about the abatement has to go to Planning and Zoning, if that was your question.
No, that wasn't my question.
Okay, then I'm lost as to what your question is.
My question was, as it relates to this project, number one, do you anticipate the project having to go to TP&Z, and have there been any communications between the administration and TP&Z?
I think I can, the answer is they do have to go to TPZ. Anybody who does anything has to get a sign-up from TPZ. It's my understanding, and again, based on what Mr. Barnhart just said, that what they're going to be going for at this point are simply interior renovations, which do not require any kind of a hearing or a permit application. Is that correct, Mr. Kleban? Okay. So they'll get interior renovations like anybody else who's doing interior renovations. They go, they take their permit application for a building permit, and they get a sign-up from zoning, and the staff will do that. It will not go before the commission. It's just the staff approval. That's based on what I understand they plan to do right now. If in the future they wanted to expand the building or do something else, then they would have to probably get a special permit, file a whole application, have a hearing. But right now, all they need is a sign-off from staff.
And you're 100% sure that's the case?
You could ask Mr. Kleban. He might be able to.
But I was asking the town attorney.
Well, based on what I've been told, that their intention is, yes, I'm sure that that's what they're going to need. If they do something different, it would have to be different, but.
Okay, well, thank you. I do support the project. I just had some questions regarding TP&Z process, so thank you.
Further discussion on the item, Representative Durrell.
Alex Durrell, RTM 3. Yeah, 3. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Barnhart or Mr. Kleban, why is it a 4-year tax-free, or whatever the terminology is? I know the threshold, not the threshold, the amount's like $480,000 that's being saved. If it were, is it because the loan is for $500,000 that you're looking for? Because if it were 2 years, perhaps it'd be under $400,000. I'm just, what's the threshold and the reasoning for that amount?
I think the rationale is that it was necessary to complete the project, to make the project work financially. So that's my understanding. That's how I would term it.
All right. Doesn't answer the question, but okay. Well, first, I would like to thank Kleban Properties for their investments in Fairfield over the years, making Fairfield a better place to work, play, and live. This tax abatement decision for me must take into consideration the fact that Kleban Properties has probably invested more money and paid more property taxes in Fairfield than any other current or previous entity in our 380-year history, for which my family is eternally grateful, especially when my mother was first selectwoman. However, many people on my side of town, many seniors currently living here, and other citizens that I have talked to just this week feel marginalized by this tax abatement proposal and other decisions and situations in this town. For example, I have a 40-apartment affordable housing complex proposal 2 blocks away from me. Earlier this afternoon, I went to the Barber of Seville, whose current store location is directly affected by this proposal, and talked to Joe the barber. My father and I have both donated Red Sox paraphernalia to Joe's collection over the years, and my father's name is on some of the mastheads of the Life magazines on display in front. It wasn't easy for me, and it wasn't easy for Joe, to whom my father, son, and I have entrusted, like many generations of Fairfield boys and men, with our hair for over 50 combined years of haircuts. That's a lot of hair. I at least owed him the courtesy to personally talk to him about this decision. Last week, after my questioning, or as some people told me, grilling of Ken Cleven, I talked briefly with Ken outside the building to let him know, is that better? To let him know that I only want what's best for Fairfield. I think both his father and he understand that, and they want the same. Personally, I have invested over 20,000 days of my life to this town, and over 10,000 of them as a homeowner, paying property taxes at a considerably lesser quantity than Cleveland Property does. As some of you may remember or want to forget, numerous times in budget meetings I have harped for increased financial involvement from our two town-based universities and with Cleveland Properties, bridging the relationship between town and gown. This is about as close as it gets, and hopefully more is soon to follow. It is needed. I'm lucky enough to have attended college at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. I'm probably even luckier to have graduated there, like my fellow RTM member from District 3, Matt Jacobs, who more recently went to and finished graduate school there, and also has a 40-apartment affordable housing complex up the block from him. Since my time there, Pittsburgh has evolved from an atrophying, steel-centric city to now, during Matt's time, what former President Barack Obama called a bold example of how to create new jobs and industries while transforming into a 21st century economy. Now, Fairfield is not Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is not Fairfield. However, Pittsburgh is currently a city on the rise, primarily based on university involvement, research, developments, and breakthroughs via the University of Pittsburgh's medical and Carnegie Mellon's technological investments. Fairfield can hopefully do the same directly with Sacred Heart and Fairfield University or through other channels. And most of us can agree that we have more past, present, and potential resources around us than a western Pennsylvania city where Three Rivers connect. University investment is something we need to nurture and strive for in order to not just currently be a town, oh yeah, with two universities, but hopefully become a college town with so much more, so near, so close, and somewhat accessible to New York City, something no place really can claim at this point, with the possible and even more expensive exception of Princeton, New Jersey, located over 100 miles away. Not if, but when Cleveland Properties' proposed development succeeds, all Fairfield succeeds, like so many times when Cleveland Properties works with Fairfield. This is not an easy decision for me. My property taxes, my heart, my memories, and a lot of my family's hair is involved. But this is what's best for Fairfield. Let us go forward together.
Further discussion on the item? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak to the item? Sir, you can come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Al Kleban. I've been living in this area for 89 years. I married my wife, and she married me, in Southport, Connecticut, 65 years ago. My wife is sitting over there next to my grandson. My children have been educated in this area. They were born in this area. My father was born in this area, and my grandfather came over from Europe and lived in this area in the late 1800s. I am emotionally involved in this decision, and this is what propels me to do it. I've seen this building empty now, a disgrace to the town, for over 10 years. And one developer after another looked at it, and each one of them turned their back on it. Well, we tried several years ago to make every effort to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish tonight. And we just couldn't do it because the landlord had his own program in mind, which didn't coincide with what was reality. We finally put it together. It's a very complicated mosaic. It required Sacred Heart University, it required banks, it required a lot. Kleban Properties is involved in many projects. And we have convinced ourselves that if a town can capture the attention of a university, it's on its way to great things. We captured the attention of Fairfield University 10 years ago. And to quote Jim Fitzpatrick, who's the vice president of Fairfield University, the beneficiary of what Kleban Properties has done for this town is the town of Fairfield. And we intend to make the town of Fairfield the beneficiary of the work of Sacred Heart and the work of Fairfield University. And I might tell you this, my wife and I traveled to Boulder, Colorado, and we traveled to several other towns which are now recognized as one of the 5 best towns in the country. And all of the towns are surrounded by universities. And when I was a trustee of the University of Connecticut for over 20 years, I was appointed initially to help organize and guide through the University of Connecticut Health Center in Farmington. It was a tough job, and I worked on it for over 20 years. It's now a great success. It's not only a success for the state of Connecticut, but it's a success for what a university can do for the state and for the country. The University of Connecticut Medical Center is recognized nationally, and it has made a big difference to us as citizens of Connecticut. I can tell you this, that our decision to go forward, irrespective of the fact that several partners of ours who are big real estate investment trusts have turned their back on this particular project. They haven't ever turned their back on anything we wanted to do in the past. But they said there has no economic merit. Okay, I understand that. But I want you to know that this decision by Kleban Properties is propelled by emotion. And that emotion goes all the way back 88 and a half years, and God intends that I'll be around in a year and a half, 90 years, and see this project completed. And it will be to the Board of Selectmen and the Assembly here and 7,000 people who signed petitions to have this go forward. It'll be to their credit, and the beneficiary of it all will be you, the town of Fairfield, all of us. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body. Anyone from the body who wishes to speak? Representative Iacono.
Pamela Iacono, District 8. The community theater resides in my district, and I think that we heard from Mr. Kleban Sr. how eloquently and how passionately they are interested in doing this. Change is hard. It's hard for me. I saw E.T. in the community theater when I was a kid. And it's hard that it won't be a movie theater, but what really is so special is that facade is going to stay the same. And to me, growing up in this area, that's Fairfield. That whole corner right there is what I think of when I think of Fairfield. And to me, the fact that there is going to be preservation of that corner is really, really important, even though that there will be change and there won't be some things anymore and it won't be exactly as it was. And that's the hard part, but really the heart of the entire downtown Fairfield, for me, is that corner and that vision, and that's going to stay, and I'm really grateful for that. I had all of my questions answered and concerns that I had gotten from my constituents on the area in terms of parking and those types of things, and I'm very comfortable supporting this. I hope that everybody supports it. It is not easy to give up the tax dollars to do this. The economic times are not that great, but this is exactly the type of private-public partnership that we ought to be looking for this particular building specifically, because nobody else wanted to touch it, and it's literally falling down. I mean, the fire department's been in there so many times it's about to go under, literally. So I hope that this passes with unanimous support tonight. You know, I had mixed feelings about some of it, and all of this has really caused me to reflect, and I really think it's a good project. I hope everyone will support it. Thank you.
Any other comment from members of the body? Representative Lefkowitz.
Nancy Lefkowitz, District 1. I am also very supportive of this project, and I want to thank everyone that has worked behind it, and to Mr. Kleban for speaking so eloquently and emotionally. I really appreciated that. And maybe through you, Mr. Moderator, maybe Mr. Barnhart, who I think just could answer, because we've had conversations about change is hard, and that is one aspect I know that is difficult for some people, but maybe he could address some of the things that are being done to take care of the current residents and tenants, or current tenants of some of the spaces that are currently occupied, because I know a lot's being done, and I think people will be glad to hear what's being done to take care of those current tenants, if that's something you could address.
Well, as a previous speaker noted, change can be hard at times, and certainly there is some impact associated with this project, some of the existing tenant base. And in our conversations with Kleban Properties, the commitment has been made. They'll make every effort to provide, every reasonable effort to make an accommodation and provide them alternative space elsewhere within properties that they own and control in the downtown, based on similar terms and conditions as what the current tenants enjoy. And in addition to that, I've met with several individuals involved and continue to talk to them about other alternatives in the event that those don't work out for some other reason. They don't find those spaces suitable. We'll continue to work with those businesses that might be impacted to find them suitable space.
Any other comments from members of the RTM? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 12. Item 12, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the applications received under the Neighborhood Assistance Act NAA program are hereby approved, and that the Director of Community and Economic Development is hereby designated as the municipal liaison of the town of Fairfield for this program. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Siebert. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Actually, before we vote, could somebody retrieve Representative Burcham and Representative Farnham? We're a little, if they're still around, before we vote. Yeah. Can't find them. Okay. All right, well. So we'll take a vote without them then. All those in favor of item 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 13, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the program year 44, October 1, 2018 to September 30, 2019, Community Development Block Grant is hereby approved in the amount of $538,200, which includes entitlement grant funds of $508,143 and program income of $30,057. Further resolved that Michael C. Tetro, First Selectman of the Town of Fairfield, be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all necessary documents that facilitate the town's participation in said CDBG program. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Wackerman. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 14, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that in accordance with a recommendation from the police chief and the fire chief, a lease between the Town of Fairfield, Town of Westport, and Sacred Heart University for premises to be used as joint 911 emergency communication center be and hereby is approved, and further resolved that the lease between Town of Fairfield and Town of Westport as tenants and Sacred Heart University as landlord, covering premises consisting of approximately 2,352 square feet of first floor of the east building of Sacred Heart University's property located at 3135 Eastern Turnpike, Fairfield, Connecticut, upon the terms and conditions and for the uses and purposes contained in said lease, be and hereby is approved, and further resolved that the First Selectman be and hereby is authorized to execute such documents as may be required to effectuate this resolution. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Smay. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the item? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 15, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled a resolution appropriating $2,897,276.45 for the costs associated with the establishment and operation of a Fairfield Westport multi-town emergency communication center with the Town of Westport, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation as recommended by the fire chief and the police chief be and hereby is approved. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Vergara, seconded by Representative Lopez. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The item carries. Item 17, to hear, consider for the first time, we've already acted on 16. 17, to hear, consider for the first time amendments to Chapter 26 of the Code of the Town of Fairfield, Historic Districts, sponsored by Phil Pierce, District 4, Jill Vergara, District 7, Karen Wackerman, District 7. We're not voting on it this month, we'll vote on it next month if we meet. Is there any discussion on the item tonight? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll come back, and again, we're going to vote on it at our next meeting, which, see what we have next month. Item 18, to consider and act upon any other matters presented at said meeting and which may be properly acted upon under the rules of the representative town meeting. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Wackerman?
I'd like to, I think, speak on behalf of all of the RTM members in congratulating our town clerk on her recent wedding. We're all very excited.
Yes, congratulations, Betsy. Any other discussion on this item? Representative Iacono?
Mr. Moderator, the RTM traditionally stands in recess for July and August if it's possible, and the Republican caucus just asked that you, if there is items that can be held over to September, that you please do so.
I agree with that. So we're not going to meet to do the historic district amendment in July or August if there's, just depends on what the town needs of us, but yeah. Any other discussion on this item? The new business item, any other business? Item 18, Representative Dean.
Representative Dean, District 3. I'm getting a little pressure from my friends in my caucus. I wanted to announce that I will not be running again for another term this coming November, and in fact, this will be my last night serving on the RTM. It has been my pleasure to be here since 2003, and it's been my pleasure to work with all of you. You've been really fabulous. I've learned a lot, and thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I just want to remind our members that there is another tour of the marina scheduled for June 30th at 1 p.m. and you meet at the Marina Police Building. I know that people that attended the tour from the last weekend said that it was very valuable, so I encourage you all to attend. Seeing no other items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We were moved by Representative Walk, seconded by Representative Wackerman. We'll adjourn.